I being heard well? All right, I see noddings, so I'm gonna assume yes for everyone. It's great to see this many people entering. It's great to see a couple of known faces. I was accepted to be a part of this by Angela and a team of people that were putting this together, a debate, or rather an exchange, I would say, that is, in my view, much needed in these times. A small, very, very small introduction of myself, and then I will pass it along to the rest of the members. I am Guido Giordano. Some of you know me. I am Argentinian American. I teach in the EJS program, Environmental Justice Program, which is embedded in the English department, and I also teach criminology in the sociology department. So that's me at John Jay. And anyone who wants to jump in and introduce themselves from the panel, please start, and then we'll start the discussion.
I guess I'll go. I'm Maria Cipriani. I'm an adjunct also in the English department. I teach composition, literature, and for the first time this semester, gender studies, which I'm really excited about. And I also really kind of like AI, so here I am.
Michele?
Got it. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Michele Echols. I'm an adjunct reference librarian here in the library. I too am, my research for the past 9 months has been AI, and so I'm very much interested in exploring how this phenomenon will take on in the world.
All right, thank you. Ariana, do you want to go?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Ariana Caragliano, formerly Durando. I've been with John Jay since 2007 and in the psychology department. My first interaction with ChatGPT was a student sending me an essay with all AI generated wording, and I picked up on it immediately. And so it piqued an interest, and I welcomed it and accepted it. And I look forward to utilizing it within the classroom as an additional tool.
Right, thank you. I have Adam next, if you want to go.
Hey everybody, I'm Adam Wandt. For I guess the next 7 days and 2 hours, I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Public Management. I think AI is one of the most important things that we could possibly be discussing at this moment, that it is going to revolutionize higher education. I'm dealing with a lot of AI issues from a research standpoint with law enforcement, and I look forward to seeing how some of this translates over to higher education too.
And then
All right, yes.
Shweta.
Hi, this is Shweta Jain, Math and Computer Science. I have mostly encountered ChatGPT from a computer programmer point of view, and I have mixed feelings, and we'll discuss more.
Oh, all right. So I guess that is everyone. The people that attended the panel are quite a few. So I would say let's not introduce each other, everyone, just because of time. So our idea with this is to go around with a few questions, doubts, and challenges that we see, also opportunities, as you can see already by the introduction of each of our members. You may have gathered different positions towards this whole thing of artificial intelligence, with ChatGPT being the brand that mostly stands out of the topic. I know that I myself have mixed feelings as well, as somebody already put it. Briefly, I would just like to say intelligence is a word that says something about us. We can discuss if everyone in the academy is intelligent, yes or no. If there are intelligent people outside of the academy, of course, if there are different ways of being intelligent. But I think we can all agree that our role in society is to think about society's problems, and if possible, to provide society with a few solutions or some ways to do better. So I think that, again, as one of the members just said, this is probably, if not the most important discussion we should be having, certainly one of the most. And so now we will throw in a few questions, and I am sorry, but I can't seem to find them. So we put together a few questions for all the participants.
Guido, while you find that, do you want me to start with the demonstration just so people could see?
Okay, Adam,
Right.
that's great. So Adam is going to do a ChatGPT small demonstration. Thank you so much.
Folks can just do a quick raise of your hand if you have used ChatGPT. All right, I see a lot of raised hands.
I know Adam, and I don't trust that it will
Screen sharing
really be Adam when he comes back.
Oh, it's
It'll be a deep fake chatbot. You are.
We're working on that to deliver lectures, Jay. I'm sick of having to refilm a lecture every year when the law changes. So I want to be able to change a script and have AI Adam do it. If I can have screen sharing, I could show what I wanted to show. It's really scary that we won't know what's real and what's not.
All right, give me 1 second, Adam.
Yeah, no problem. We just want to demonstrate the problem for those of you who haven't seen it. And the way I'm going to demonstrate it, once I can get screen sharing, here we go, here is my Blackboard course, right? And most of us have seen this before.
I don't, oh, there we go.
Oh, the wrong, give me 1 second here. There we go, that's the right screen. Here is my Blackboard course, and this is a discussion board that I have with my students. It's about freedom of information and privacy, and I have a multi-part question here. And what I would really like to do, and I obviously can't do this anymore. This is the old way of doing this. What I would really like to do here is I'm going to copy and paste it, and I go over to ChatGPT. And I think everyone can see ChatGPT right now. So I'm just going to, I don't have the paid account. I have the free account. I'm going to start a new one. And I'm going to go here. And I am going to just paste in the exact question directly from my Blackboard. And the only thing I'm going to say here is write me an essay at the level of a graduate student. Enter. That's all I did. And the response could be very good. The response might be problematic. The problem is that there is a response, and most faculty, without understanding, might think that a person wrote this. And it's going to be a custom tailored response that might be pretty accurate, or it might not be pretty accurate. But what's clear to me is that we will not be able to stop our students from using this technology. And we could talk more about that later. And that's why this is a pivotal moment in higher education, because we, in my opinion, we are going to need to change the way we deliver education.
All right. Thank you, Adam. So now I have the questions. Sorry for that. So we built, I think they are 6 questions, and the idea is to provide them to all panelists. And please feel free, each of you, to answer to whatever question you think it's more suited, or you feel more comfortable with, or you want to share your response about. The first question is, could you share why you decided to use AI or ChatGPT in particular in your teaching or in your mentorship? And how you used it or how you plan to use it in the future. Also, as related to this, what are your goals as an instructor, as a professor, while using artificial intelligence? There are 5 more other questions that we have put together, but starting with that one, anybody wants to take the lead on it? I see Ariana and then Michele. If you can use the Zoom reaction to raise the hands, that is better, because because it helps me organize. But then Ariana, feel free to go. Thank you.
Thank you. So I am teaching research this semester, and it occurred to me to include ChatGPT to show both the advantages and the disadvantages of it. So one of the assignments for my students is to have them ask ChatGPT to create a between subjects and a within subjects design and find all the different variables within them. But one of the things that I noticed when I ran the request myself is that some of the references, when you ask it for citations, are incorrect. So I really want them to take apart the study and find the problems within the study, but also find the problems within the citations and have them backtrack. Like I wound up having to go through BARD, which is Google's, going through BARDs and going through PubMed and then trying to find the citation. So it allowed me to see from the student's perspective, well, if they just run a study and they ask it to create something for them, how then do they translate that and make it their own? Because it is a tool, just like Google. I'm sure when Google first came out in the classroom, a lot of instructors like ourselves were very concerned with students being able to find this information on the web versus going to the library. And now we've incorporated that and we welcome that. And I think it's the same into especially doing research in psychology. There's information out there. They should be able to get to it, but they also need to understand how to utilize it properly and professionally and ethically.
All right. Thank you. Very clear. Michele, do you want to go? And then Jill has her hand up also.
So gathering from all the research that I've been doing over the last 7 months, ChatGPT 3.5 has an issue where it will eventually, if you do not use in-depth prompts with it, it comes out to be the information will definitely come out. What researchers are now saying is phantom information, but you probably heard the term hallucinations and previously. And there are databases that are out here that our students can use. There are like Elicit is one that will allow students to use the same generative AI technique, and it comes up with scholarly articles. You have Perplexity is another one that can be embedded if you want to use in the classroom. And then you also have Semiotic Scholar, which is 3. Those 3 I've worked with in depth, and they do come up with articles that are from the open access journal articles. So here at the library, we are used to using the databases, the subscription databases. And so if you're going to embed that into your courses, one of my recommendations would be to also work with us, and we can tell you what scholarly databases that you can also include for your students. As Ariana has said, and as we know, the research has shown, our students attend TikTok University, right? And in TikTok University, they're learning all of the latest techniques. Like most students are not going to be using ChatGPT because they are not paying for it. And because 3.5, if you use 4.0 and you're paying for 4.0, then you get better results from ChatGPT. They're going to be using BARD, they're going to be using Bing, and they're also going to be using Claude, because Claude 2 is programmed where you don't need to prompt it as well. And I have some things I could demo as well, but for the sake of time, the best way you're going to become familiar with the programs that are out here, the generative AI programs, is to actually engage with the programs itself. And that's my recommendation. But the library has databases that you can utilize. And once you find, what I like about Elicit and Perplexity is that it gives the students keywords, because students come to the library and they're struggling with their research words, and they will give them research words that they can then now use the databases that their tuition pays for.
All right, thank you. Very clear. And also introducing the matter of paying for these tools versus not paying for them, which is another important discussion that we as a public college and university should certainly be having. Jill, if you want to go.
Yes, thanks. That's really helpful. Thanks, Michele. Because my experience has just been with ChatGPT, and I've experienced a lot of the problems that people have already identified here. But I have found it useful too, in terms of creating materials for class. So one of the things, I've been on sabbatical leave for the last year, and one of the things that I've been doing is developing an OER textbook for intro psych. I found it helpful sometimes to just, put text in to help me identify, I guess, learning objectives quickly, for a starting point from text, for creating multiple choice questions, for creating outlines for PowerPoint slides. So from a teaching perspective, I found it really helpful. And because I was on sabbatical, I haven't used it in the classroom, but I'm hoping to have students think critically about it. But I was sort of seeing what ChatGPT could and couldn't do. So now I'm going to have to rethink that a little bit in terms of these other platforms that Michele just mentioned. So, but just, one of the things I was thinking about was a biography. So I put myself into ChatGPT and asked it to generate a biography, and it really did a terrible job. It gave me one of my colleagues' biographies. And so I was thinking that might be a useful exercise for students to do, that they could compare a generative AI biography with a person's actual CV or something like that, to see how accurate it is. So, I want students to be able to use it ethically. Yeah. So I guess that's all I have to say. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. Again, clear and insightful, and it gave me at least something to think about. Shweta?
Yeah, I think I have a very long comment, and I'll try to shorten it as much. It's before ChatGPT, there was Google, and then there was Stack Overflow and other tools that our students who are learning how to write computer programs, who could Google the questions and find various ways people have solved the problem. And so the problem, which is finding solutions to homework problems, existed before ChatGPT. They were able to find pretty much all kinds of solutions to computer science questions and to some extent mathematics questions. That has become worse with ChatGPT because now they can literally get an entire computer program to copy paste. And I think the issue is more common for computer science because there was already a lot of resources out there, and this has just brought it all together. However, the first time I used ChatGPT was to figure out the exact API, application program interface, for an Android based software program. And I had looked at other resources to find the documentation, and those documentations weren't working. ChatGPT gave me the answer, which I had already found. And of course, it was all garbage. So the problem is when a student goes and searches these answers, finds a garbage and submits it, gets a 0, not knowing that they're going to get a 0 because their answer is wrong. So that's the problem we face with computer science and any kind of technical curriculum. They get garbage answers. A more useful way to use this interface is by providing your own input and having it sort of fine-tune it. So I've done this with students. I've helped them. I often get CVs. Professor, can you please look at my CV? I'm not getting jobs. Like, okay, let me see. And then I've suggested them, okay, take your bullet points and ask ChatGPT to write it more professionally, and it would write it more professionally for them. And so it's like those kinds of things where you have a piece that you want, you already wrote it, the creativity is yours. And then you ask it to make it shine a little, make it more clear for a professional purpose. Or I have an entire document, I want an abstract out of it. It will do it, but again, it will do it in a marketing speak. It's like, it sounds more like it's an advertisement. The output that comes out to me, it looks like an advertisement. I have to tone down the language quite a bit before I can actually use it for anything. So my last thing is that ChatGPT, the paid version, is probably way better. And I know friends in the industry, they are using ChatGPT professional version in companies to do all kinds of work, doing internal data analysis and whatnot. So it's very important that we actually teach ChatGPT in our classrooms so that students are prepared for the workforce.
All right. Thank you, Shweta. Also putting an emphasis on how important or the differences that this may have for those of you who are in the computer sciences and those of us who are not or are only there as amateurs. And then also about the impact that this may have or is having already in the market, in the labor market. Angela, I see your hand up.
Because I just wanted to mention there was a question in the chat about teaching writing and how this impacts the teaching of writing. And so as a tool, as a technique, sort of piggybacking on what Shweta said, having students critique and revise something that they got from ChatGPT, right? Consistent with what Jill was suggesting. So have it write your bio, but fix it. So they can both see how the system doesn't perform or the areas where it's less effective, but also working on their own writing skills as a result. They take the foundation and they improve their own writing based on that foundation. So that's another approach. Having it write a review of a film that they've watched and sort of how, comparing that to their own review and either revising what they get or writing their own and then improving their writing through that exercise. That's all I want to add.
All right, thank you. And then Michele.
I wanted to add on to what Shweta said about businesses using ChatGPT. I would like for us as educators, and as many educators are now using, to not use ChatGPT as much because it's a brand name, and that we learn to say generative AI, because then that opens up the field for all the other great programs that are out here that are much better than ChatGPT. For instance, Claude gives much better results with less prompting, as most prompting has happened. Ethan Moloch at he's at Wharton School of Business, and he used it with his graduate students and entrepreneurial graduate students, and comes out with a lot of report. I'm working from my laptop, not from the other computer, and I'll drop his report in there where he has come up with some great ideas for instructors to use in the classroom, where you can use it as a tutor, or you can use it, as Angela has said, to use it for compare and contrast, so that the students can still have those great skills that we all want our students to have. The bottom line with this is that if we keep saying ChatGPT, and this is more from a personal standpoint, but also from a lot of researchers as well, is that we're giving ChatGPT a lot more press that they don't have to pay for. And that if we use the definition generative AI, in which I can basically read a brief definition that I have already there, it's like it's a branch of artificial intelligence that uses machine learning algorithms to create new content, such as text, images, video, sounds, code, and calculations. How does generative AI work? It works from a large set of data. It often is used in conjunction with the natural language processing and computer vision techniques to create realistic outputs. Now, why is it important to us? It's important because it's going to transform a variety of fields, including education. What we know as once the rote learning is no longer, we now have to do a lot of PBL, project-based learning with our students. In addition, It helps to facilitate creation of new resources. It functions as an assistant. So the administrative assistant, or if you want a creative assistant, if you want to improve your own personal skill set. I used Claude yesterday, helping out a colleague of mine who works at another institution create a whole lesson plan combining 2 courses that she never taught. It actually did a whole syllabi, and then she looked at it and we just revised it a little bit, and she got 15 weeks out of it that now she can use as a platform. When I used Bing with my high school students, because I'm a high school librarian as well, I used Bing, and I used it with them to create something that students struggle with, which is the basic outline. Now I'm using Claude to create basic outlines from their topics and give them the outline to help assist in their research. And then, of course, I'll drive them always back to the databases. So I just wanted to say that part about let's change the vernacular with this and stop saying ChatGPT, because what OpenAI did back in November was they unleashed this on the world for consumers because they ran out of data and they ran out of information. So they got us to go in and put more data in so that they can build ChatGPT 4, and then now charge $20 per month. And now we're looking at a new thing, an old phenomenon coming back with this with generative AI, which is going to be the digital divide. We work at a community college. A lot of our students won't have access to pay for this, but students who attend wealthier institutions have the means to pay for the paid version of ChatGPT, the paid version of WriteSonic. Marketing and SEO have been using these tools for like the last 6 years from my research. And I was amazed at that. Like, I don't know if anyone ever heard of Jasper, but in marketing, they use Jasper. News outlets have been using Jasper, but Jasper is very costly. So I just want us to say generative AI, and I'll go off my soapbox right there.
I support, and I will try, and I hope we all try. I also think, I don't know, 15 years ago, we started saying, oh, I'll Google this, and now it's basically a verb. But yeah, generative AI, or GAI to make it shorter. Adam, I see your hand up.
Just wanted to kind of piggyback. I think my message is different than most. I think my message kind of is to what Roger's question is. And the message is that we need to change how we do our evaluation and our assessments, and research essays might not be the best way to go forward anymore. Whatever we're calling it, whatever program we're talking about, whatever technology we're talking about, tomorrow or next month or next year, it will all be different. And the message is that this is going to increase exponentially. It's already being built into Microsoft Word, right? And Microsoft Office. And it's already being built into technologies like Slack and project management software. So our ability to limit students to using it is going to be zero. I think what our provost told us in the beginning of this is the most important thing. What we need to do, I think, as educators, is figure out a way to get our students understanding the ethics of AI, how to use generative chat in an ethical way, because they will be using it. And most importantly, as an educator, I want to know how my students could use AI to succeed in the workplace and overshadow their competition. Right. So that's my interest. And Shweta talked about how important it is in computer science. I'll tell you, I know somebody very closely that's getting an MBA. All of their work was done through ChatGPT for their program. Okay. They don't even bother original thought anymore. We saw an article come out that ChatGPT got a 3.3 at Harvard for a freshman year. There was a Harvard freshman who used ChatGPT for everything. And then he came out and explained what he did, and his GPA for his freshman year was 3.3 at Harvard. So how do we use this creatively? And how do we embrace AI in a way that helps our students? And that's my message or question.
All right. Thank you. Very impacting. pieces of data. Maria, I see your hand up.
Yes, I think I need to weigh in on the use of language, and as someone who teaches composition and has used ChatGPT to generate answers to all of my my writing prompts just to see what I got out of it. The thing that struck me most, because I teach in several different schools, I teach in an HBCU, I teach at John Jay, and I teach at other places where the level of student language use is different. And what I'm trying to figure out, and I haven't been able to figure out yet, is whether the AI that an individual student gets, and this goes back to the digital divide, whether that answer will reflect their language use, or whether it's going to revert back to the language of the academy. And if it does that, that's actually a great learning tool for the students who need to learn how to code switch. And it's going to become more difficult because their metaphors are not the more traditional metaphors that we're used to giving them, that the things that they have not received in high school suddenly become available to them, even in the free versions of these programs. So I play with this a lot because it's a really fun tool. And it's helped me to identify the things that I don't do well, like create a multiple choice quiz that is an actual teaching tool. So I'm big on, you can take the quiz as many times as you want. The answers will change, the questions will change, but I'm hoping that you're learning in the process when you see what the actual answer is. I have told lots of my students, use free Grammarly, just so that you get a little bit of the basics that you don't seem to have gotten, including reading what you've written before you give it to me. And my first experience with ChatGPT was not at John Jay, but another school where a student handed in an essay that started, "I'm not programmed to write about emotions." And at that point, I was like, okay, it's my turn to start looking up this stuff, because in that same school, I got an essay in the first semester from a student who said, "Your feedback brought me to tears because it's the first time anybody's ever read my essay through to the end." And in that moment, I realized, okay, as Adam said, my methods of teaching have to change, but I'm not willing to give up on the essay quite yet. That's all I've got to say.
All right. Thank you, Maria. Great contributions, and also different, perhaps, point of view that we see amongst the members, which I welcome personally. I think that through the very dynamics of the conversation, we have sort of covered a few of the questions that we have built beforehand, but one that I see floating around, but perhaps not answered specifically, is if you experience any abuses of generated AI, what did you learn from them? And this also requires anyone who wants to answer this to specify, if they can, where they would draw the line, which is a proper use of the tool, and which is an ethical use of the tool, or something that is not perhaps enriching to the student, or something that you cannot measure in any way to assess it. So that would be the question. I see Ariana has the hand up.
Thank you. So, like I had mentioned before, my first initial experience with AI was a student presenting AI work as their own. I suspected it just based on the students' prior work. I think this is also really important, that we know our students. We know the students that give certain verbiage and how they speak and how they write. And I think that that's important to know who your students are, first and foremost. And then, you know, it was jolting when I saw it, because I said, the student doesn't usually write like this, what's going on? And so I started to do some research, and I found an AI generator detector. and I threw it in there. And it was like 98% AI generated. And then I tested it. I wrote something myself, and then I wanted to see what happened. And of course, it was like 30%, 20%. And so there was a difference. And so I reached out to the chair, and that's how this really got the ball rolling for me, because it was a question, what do I do? This isn't outright plagiarism, but the student really didn't produce it. The student hasn't been producing work like this throughout the entire term. So, and then of course that begs the question, if the student is doing this the entire term, then how do I make that distinction, right? So I was left between a rock and a hard place. So at that moment, I had to make a decision, and I decided not to accept the work. But over the course of the past 5 months, I've been doing research, and that's why I'm now going to incorporate it and actually incorporate it into their assignments so that they can see how to properly use it. And also I want them to cite that they've used it. I want them to say AI assistance, and I want them to tell me where they got their AI assistance from. Like, I want accountability from my students, just like if they're going to go do a search someplace and pull something up off the web, I want to know where they're getting that information, and I want them to self-check. So these are all important things, but initially I didn't accept the work because of that. I felt like the violation when you read something, when you see it's plagiarized and you're like, what do I do now? So it hit home for me at that point.
All right. Thank you for that. Anyone else wants to hand? Robert?
So if we question AI, if we resist it, if we don't want students to use it, and we report students that use it, are we just being a Luddite? Are we just resisting the inevitable tide of AI, and we simply have to give in that this is inevitable? I don't like it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see my students using it. And I thought that was kind of a consensus. And now I'm surprised by this session. So am I a Luddite? Am I making myself obsolete with this opinion? Thank you.
I hope you're not, Robert, because that's exactly what I was going to say too, that I'm kind of surprised. I mean, kind of, but not really. I'm surprised about all of this, because it seems now that every time I attend these kinds of sessions, people are all for it, and I stand alone. I guess a cheese stands alone. But I don't like this idea, and I think we should encourage students to write for several reasons, right? There's the unfair advantage stuff that others were talking about in maybe a different regard than the way I've been considering it. For example, just this summer, over a 5-week period, which is a really short time, so I don't really get to know my students quite the way I do when I work with them over 15 weeks. And it was an online class. So that also further limited my ability to be able to recognize what kind of work the students would produce on their own without AI. And I had a student consistently even write emails using it, because I could tell that there was just something robotic and forced about the conversation or the interactions. And I couldn't figure out what to do. And she would consistently then score higher than other students, creating for me a real ethical conundrum, right? Because even though I could recognize some of the robotic stuff, I knew it wasn't her work, so I would keep pushing questions and then taking points off just to show her that she needed to do her own work, while giving her full credit when she did turn in her own work. I kept pushing and pushing, and I never got anywhere. And she wound up doing best in the class, and that just doesn't seem right to me. And the other perspective that I wanted to raise, and hopefully I'm not taking up too much time, is that a lot of the material that's already out there that artificial intelligence software trains on isn't necessarily correct, right? And as theories change, for example, in anthropology, which is what I'm trained in, we have had to really move away from certain kinds of trends in our discipline that then would be just reproduced, and we'd never be able to work our way out of these kinds of linguistic traps, right? If we just keep recycling the same kind of material that the AI generated essays would depend on, right? So really we want to enforce and encourage creativity, right? And outside thinking. To allow students to just simply rely on some technological crutch just seems insane to me. That's where I'm at. I'll stop there.
Thank you both. Thank you, Robert, for the question. I think that and the matter of where to draw the line brought something to the panel, because I see a lot of hands up now. And thank you, Melissa. I don't think you are alone. I have reservations personally. One of them is matters of privacy. A few colleagues said, you know, give ChatGPT, this corporation, your CV and ask it to write a biography of yourself. That is a great way of knowing how good it is, because you know your life better than anybody probably, but that is also a great way of giving your data to a private corporation. And there are other concerns. Paying or not paying is definitely one of them. Valid knowledge, scientific knowledge. These are a few of our concerns. I wanted to highlight that I think that transparency while using it is one thing where some colleagues have said that they draw the line. So I don't remember who, but somebody said a student was using it without saying it was using it. So I think that that's a different thing. If a student uses it, well, you know, being transparent about it, that's one way to go about it. While if it's using it to show a better result without saying it, that's a different thing. I see Maria's hand up, and then Adam, Ariana, and Shweta.
Okay, I'm going to try to be really quick here, because I just wanted to respond a little bit to the question, am I a Luddite? I'm of a certain age, and I remember typing papers on a Selectric typewriter with corrector tape. And I do remember being in college and asking if I could use the internet to do research. And the professor was adamantly saying, no, you must use books, you know, and here I am now as a professor not doing any of that. And so when I first encountered ChatGPT, I kind of harkened back to those days, and I thought, there's no stopping this train. And so I can't be afraid of it. I just have to jump in and do it, even though it's a little scary. And it's really scary to see what it comes up with. But it also raises questions for me, you know, in arts and sciences. How do you teach creativity? How do you teach introspection to 17, 18-year-olds? Is it possible? I mean, I taught a course called Death and Literature at one point, and I asked students to write their own obituaries, and that did not go over well. I learned. I was in graduate school. What did I know? But we also, you know, the phrase critical thinking comes up over and over and over again. And, you know, my teaching freshmen, I'm telling them it's not criticizing. It's, you know, I have to teach them what critical means. So, but for me, the critical thinking question is, who's generating this information? Where is it coming from? And how is it being funneled to various people based on their prior artificial intelligence use within a certain artificial intelligence program? And it brought me back to, I also teach media studies. It brought me to deep fakes and the whole thing about what deep fakes do and how they're generated and how they are really, really getting more and more sophisticated. So Luddite, no, you're here, so there's that. But there are further questions that, you know, we're just starting to scratch the surface of. I'm done.
Thank you. Adam, you want to go?
I'm responding to the Luddite question too. And I think I owe Rob an answer here. Yeah, Rob, you're being a Luddite. And there's a possibility that you are taking away an opportunity from your students by ignoring a technology that they will need to master to succeed. And I'm not talking just about ChatGPT. I'm talking about the whole understanding of how AI is changing our lives. But the other thing I want to tell you is, a lot of people know this. I have a John Jay undergraduate degree. I went to John Jay undergraduate. And the Luddite is an important part of the classroom learning experience. So while maybe integrating these technologies might help you teach them better, not integrating these technologies will also serve an educational purpose for them in showing how they will need to evolve as well. I think seeing evolution of different learners and different teachers is very helpful for students. It definitely was with me in law school. I went to law school during a time where we were just transitioning from books to computers, right? So to watch the different styles was also quite important.
All right. Thank you. Ariana?
I just wanted to touch on something, and I don't want to make it seem like generative AI is only for turning in papers. It can also help the student learn the differences and do comparison analysis between things as a backup in the supportive system. Again, another resource and another tool. So, Rob, you may not want the student to actually submit work that has been AI generated, but it doesn't mean that you can't utilize and incorporate it as a tool for the students to see what it has to offer as a supplemental resource. So you don't have to make it a direct source in the class, but you know, at least something where they are getting exposure to it. Because one of the things, again, that I'm trying to do in my own class is to make the students use it, find the flaws in it, fix the flaws, whether that's using Grammarly, whether it's using comparison, whether it's using ideas. And another really great you know, class activity, if you will, might be in the works in my mind right now, is have the class look up a topic, AI generate it, and bring it back to the table and discuss it in class. How many of them are going to come up with the same amount of material? Let them see where the creativity is, that they themselves still have to put their own element of work into it. Otherwise, they're going to be submitting the same exact thing over and over. We give our students all the same textbook. They don't all come out with the same material when they propose and they give us work back. They go on the internet, they find the similar resources. We've all seen it. They all have similar resources on there. We're excited, but they're all giving us different information. So it makes sense to allow the students to use it so that you can work together to use it appropriately.
All right. Thank you. I see 3 more hands up. Just so you know, we have 9 minutes until this officially ends. I see a lot of enthusiasm, and there will be other times to discuss this. I can say that for now. We will be having more discussions about this. I would personally just say, because the train metaphor stuck with me. So we cannot stop this train. I agree with that. But then should we jump in? I don't think those are the only 2 options. At least I think we should be able to discuss, and I think that's what we're doing here. Where is this train going? Where are we building the rails? I think that's part of the exchange here. I see Shweta's hand now, and then Eva as well. And there was somebody else. Okay.
Okay, so I'll respond to this question as well as whether we should let students use it or allow them to use it or not. So so the thing is, you know, the train, we don't want to leave the train. We want to ease into it. We want to be on it at some point, but we have to be slow and steady because that's what wins the race. Basically, not to add more metaphors and not make any sense. The question of whether to let students use ChatGPT or GPT in a classroom is a discipline specific question. If you are teaching them how to write, they need to know the techniques of writing, and that you're going to teach in your classroom. And you can show them how to improve their writing with the use of GPT. In mathematics and computer science, we will need to discuss this in our curriculum committee to change the way we ask questions. And that's the only way we can succeed with students they're using the program, but also they are learning from the program rather than copying directly. So in computer science, if you're giving a programming question with a two sentences, write a program to sort this array, that we are failing because they can find the answer in seconds. But we have to do something else. We have to say, okay, so here is a list and you need to sort it and you need to show your output in this exact way. And that's how the whole program should be structured, and it looks like, I mean, that's how it's going to be. And I don't know if you can do the same thing with a writing class. Maybe you can. This is what you're going to write, but this has to have that element and this element. Your writing would have to have this emotion, or that emotion should have a story. It should have an analogy. It should have add more elements to the question itself. So the question is no longer a two-line question saying write a program that sorts an array, but write a program that sorts the array, and your input should look like this and your output should look like this, and should exactly match what I'm giving you in this question paper. And that will help because they will not be able to generate that with GPT. They would have to write a program to generate that. And then if they do write a program to generate that, we win. So that's what my spiel would be here.
All right, Shweta, thank you. Important to distinguish different disciplines within this discussion, I guess, and how we apply it. Eva?
Yeah, I guess you know, I am very new to even this whole conversation, to be quite honest with you. And one of the things that I'm really concerned about is, and what I like to try to do in my classroom is to activate voice, right? To sort of validate the way that my students express themselves initially, and to support them to improve with those skill sets. And so that's where I'm kind of, you know, wobbling. And I'm just wondering, how does AI really support the activation of voice? And primarily because so many of my students come from an education that has silenced their voice, right? So their idea of even beginning the speaking process, beginning the writing process is very intimidating. And then so that they don't sort of lean back on this as the way in which you're going to generate your own creativity. And also whether or not the work, and I'm just thinking whether or not this work silences our students, right? So that rather than going ahead and creating the work, right, laying out the world and writing about the world as you see it, instead, you know, you rely on this tool to sort of talk about the world for you. And so that's the piece that I'm sort of grappling with. But I love all of the ideas about how to use it, how to incorporate it. I just am kind of thinking how it will still activate voice for students. And I'm wondering if anybody can, you know, if you have any ideas on that.
Anybody?
I'll
Hi,
jump in.
I do. Sorry, I was actually typing something in there.
All right, go ahead.
Oh, you muted
I'm
yourself.
sorry. I was talking about I was actually typing something in the chat, and I was going to talk about, you know, in K-12 world, they talk about flipped classrooms. We also talk about project-based learning. I feel that in higher ed, perhaps some of those techniques will need to be incorporated, as opposed to just assigning assignments to students and sending them off to write their 15-page paper at the end of the semester. In terms of having students look at speaking more in class, to have their authentic voice, to develop their authentic voice. As a creative writing major, we did a lot of free writing 20 years ago when I was in undergrad, where we had to sit and do a brain dump for 5 or 10 minutes free write. So an unedited free write, don't move the pen off the paper. That's another way of helping students. So I empathize and I understand faculty and the concerns and the questions that you have, but we are now forced with looking at our teaching mechanics in a different way and the things that we use to teach with. I did drop something in the chat from Ethan Moloch that talks about prompting, that talks about different teaching strategies on how you can use AI. It's a 22-page document. I do advise everyone to take a look at it.
If I answer that voice question real quick, I have a perspective on it. I used to be really uncomfortable writing when I was younger, when I was an undergrad, when I was a law student. Writing to me today is still a task. It's a process. It's something I have to pay a lot of attention to. Anyone who emails with me a lot knows my emails probably are full of mistakes. But what gives me my voice a bit is spell check. And spell check and grammar check helps give me confidence that when I need to write something, I could run it past Grammarly or spell check and make sure I'm not embarrassing myself. And I think with generative AI, people who are afraid to express themselves because they're afraid of what the output or how the output might be judged, I think that that might make them more comfortable for them to be able to tell a story by giving prompts and then having the AI help them tell their story. But that is just a thought that I'll finish with.
All right. It's time now. I think that there's a lot more that we can say and want to say, but the clock marks that this is the end. So I don't know if Angela, if you would like to say anything else as a wrap up.
I would just say thank you all for coming, and then you know, we can think about ways. The suggestions were to have library or TLC, you know, put together resources. The TLC has been collecting AI resources, and so I've sent some of those out, and we can continue to do that. And share examples of assignments that people are using that they think have worked well. That's another thing that we can collect. And then I would defer to Michele for the wonderful reflections from what the library is offering, because they were really informative. Oh, and then the last thing is just what I put in the chat, that we would not tell you that you have to use it or you don't have to use it from an administrative perspective. That's an academic freedom issue. It was really more just be prepared. You can't go business as usual and then punish students if they use it if you have not been explicit about your expectations. So you want to be very clear with your students about your policy around generative AI, what your expectations are. We have sample language where you can explain, you know, where the line with cheating is with using generative AI. So that's important. That clarity with your students about your expectations, really important.
Hey, wait, don't go away.
Thank you, Angela, for putting all this together. It was really great. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yes. Thanks everyone for participating.
Thank you.
Oh, I can't find them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Copy link. Okay.
You can download the chat for all the information. I think, do we have access to that?